They danced beneath studio lights while a needle kissed the groove and a nation learned how to move. On weekday afternoons, Studio B became a mirror for American youth. Hems flared, saddle shoes skimmed, and every camera pan taught a new grammar of grace. American Bandstand didn't just broadcast teenagers, it minted style, turning small gestures into national signals. A turn of the wrist, a sway of a skirt, a smile that said everything. This film follows 7 style muses who shaped that language and then carried it into ordinary life. Bunny Gibson, energy you could wear. Carole Persiani, elegance that spoke softly and stayed. Barbara Levick, quiet power, loud results. Joyce Shafer, warmth beside Norman Kerr, a partnership remembered. Carmen Jimenez, rhythm with a Latin lilt, later a life of service. JoAnn Montecarlo, stagecraft and sisterhood. And Frannie Jordano, the smile that never faded. Fame was the spark. The years after were the weather. When the music stopped, what remained? Wardrobes, scrapbooks, and the stories we're about to find. The camera finds a classic convertible rolling along a sunlit highway. And for a moment, America recognizes a familiar spark. Decades after Studio B, Bunny Gibson is still in motion. Proof that some rhythms don't fade when the music stops. Long before a primetime commercial reintroduced her to a new generation, Bunny had already taught a nation how energy could be a kind of fashion. A swing of the hem, a bright step on the two, a burst of charm that felt wearable. On American Bandstand, 1959 to 1961, she wasn't merely another regular. She was a metronome with a smile. The floor tilted toward her tempo. Teenagers copied the silhouette, saddle shoes, flared skirts, the crisp line of a cardigan in motion, and discovered that confidence could be stitched into an outfit. Fan letters piled up, not only asking for autographs but for advice. What song should I practice? What shoes make a cleaner spin? Bunny's answer, week after week, was her body language. She danced like the camera was a friend, and the nation learned the choreography of joy. Behind the scenes, she was the kind of partner who made partners better, treating the beat as a conversation, leaving space for someone else's flourish, then closing the phrase with a wink the audience could feel at home. Editors loved her because she read on camera. Directors loved her because she never ran out of takes. The show minted stars, but it also minted a grammar, and Bunny spoke it fluently. Shoulders open, chin lifted, elbows light, hips like a soft pendulum. It looked effortless because she had done the homework no one sees. Where is she now? Close your eyes and you'll hear it, the same uptime optimism, redirected. The stage became community rooms, school gyms, charity halls. She advocated for dancing as a lifeline for young people, a healthy addiction to movement and music. Public appearances, small town to big stage, stitched the years together. Meet and greets where a grandmother would press a photo from 1960 into her palm, workshops where a teenager discovered that rock and roll footwork could still untie modern anxiety. And then came the national spotlight again. Proof that the culture hadn't forgotten, only waited for a cue. If style is what remains when clothes go out of style, then Bunny's legacy is kinetic. Kindness at tempo, generosity on the beat. She reminds us that the best dancers don't just count the music, they count the people, making room on the floor, keeping time for those who missed the first bar, turning nostalgia into a present tense. Somewhere in a closet there's a skirt that still swishes like applause. Somewhere on a shelf there's a scrapbook that still smells faintly of stage lights and hairspray. Bunny Gibson turns the page, smiles, and steps back into the downbeat. The camera doesn't rush her, it learns from her. Carole Persiani moved like the show's invisible metronome for poise, angles softened into arcs, steps polished until they gleamed. If Bunny Gibson taught America that energy could be worn, Carole proved that elegance could be learned, one deliberate breath at a time. She didn't seize attention. She trimmed it, tailored it, and let it fall perfectly on the line of a shoulder, the swing of a skirt, the gentle crown of a chin held just so. Imagine an artifact on a velvet tray, an original bandstand admission card with her name, evidence that the myth once stood in a doorway, handed over a ticket, waited for the floor to open. In an age before selfies and filters, the record was written in the way fabric behaved around her. Hemlines didn't simply flare, they confided. Cardigans didn't cover, they composed. When the camera track passed, Carole met the lens with a hush that read louder than applause. Teenagers at home tried to copy that hush, combing hair into a cleaner line, choosing a smaller earring because restraint was suddenly glamorous. Partners loved dancing with her because she made partnership visible. She left air in the beat for someone else's idea, then closed the phrasing with a finishing touch that made the couple look inevitable. Editors loved her because the footage seemed finished before they cut it. You can't fake that kind of proportion. It comes from rehearsal, from watching yourself without vanity, from learning how to be interesting at the corners. Wrist, ankle, the slow turn of the head that lands exactly on two. What happened after the lights? The historical record grows quieter here, as it often does for women whose genius lived in live television. We find her in fragments, names on the backs of photos, captions in scrapbooks, a mention in a program, a smile in someone's attic album. But a quiet record doesn't mean an empty one. Elegance travels, it moves into workrooms and weddings, school hallways and Sunday services. It keeps teaching even after the bell rings. Stand taller, say less, let your kindness be the loudest color in the outfit. Where is she now? With dignity, we tread carefully. Some doors are family doors. The story we can tell is the public one, that a generation's posture shifted because Carole showed them how. If grace has an afterlife, it lives in the choices people keep making, choosing a classic silhouette over a louder one, choosing to lead by listening, choosing a softer entrance and a clearer exit. If you danced beside Carole, if you photographed her, if you have a yearbook note or a clipped column with a date in the margin, help us stitch the hem of this story. Send a scan, a memory, a detail only a partner would notice. Carole Persiani didn't chase the spotlight, she tuned it. And once you've been tuned, you keep hearing the note. Some dancers chase velocity, Barbara Levick chased proportion. Watch her in any surviving clip or still, and you'll see a geometry that feels inevitable. Lines that meet where they should, weight that settles exactly when the music asks. She didn't lean on flash, she leaned on rightness. And in a television era that rewarded spectacle, Barbara kept proving that restraint, measured precisely, can win the night. The record, scattered across programs, photos, and contest tallies, remembers outcomes as well as impressions. In 1958, paired with Walt Grzelak, she placed second in the slow dance contest, a result that reads like a thesis: clarity over clutter, balance over bravado. 2 years later, with Billy Cook at her side, Barbara's poise turned decisively into first place at the 1960 Jitterbug contest. The prize was charmingly of its time: 3 television sets, like a wink from the future to the girl who had just mastered the present. Viewers at home didn't need the trophies to keep score. They could see how the camera trusted her. When she moved, the frame relaxed. Partners mattered, and Barbara made them matter more. With Walt, the steps breathed. With Billy, the edges sharpened into a bright, confident outline. With others over the seasons, practice floors, long rehearsals, missed buses, borrowed shoes. She kept discovering that good dancing is polite conversation at speed. You listen with your ribs, you answer with your feet. No gasp, no fuss, just the kind of reply that lands right on two. What did teenagers learn from Barbara Levick? That elegance is kinetic, that a skirt can argue for moderation and win, that you can quiet a room without lowering the volume simply by keeping your center. At a time when trends begged for attention, Barbara made attention come to her by giving none of it to herself. She looked complete before the edit. Directors love that. Audiences remember it. After Bandstand, the paper trail thins, as it so often does for women whose brilliance was televised live and then folded into ordinary life. There are hints of California, a preference for privacy, the sense that she stepped off a bright floor and into a quieter competence, but quiet is not absence. Quiet is a choice, and it leaves fingerprints on the posture of a daughter at prom, on the way a neighbor arranges a hemline, on the confidence of someone who learned once that the cleanest turn is also the kindest. Where is she now? We answer carefully. In the public record, in the contest lists, in the photographs that still coach anyone willing to study them. If you danced with Barbara, if you were in the room the night the Jitterbug judges wrote down her name, if a clipping lives in your family album, lend us a copy. Some victories echo loudly for 60 years. Barbara's echo is a metronome, It measures how grace outlasts the song. Some partnerships are choreography, some become punctuation. Joyce Shafer and Norman Kerr were the comma that made the sentence breathe, the small, necessary pause that let a whole room read the rhythm correctly. Watch the surviving photographs and you'll see it, the way her smile steadies his line, the way his frame gives her room to bloom. They didn't attack the floor, they clarified it. On American Bandstand, clarity reads as confidence. Joyce learned early that television loves intention, eyes that decide, shoulders that promise, feet that keep their appointment with the beat. Norman matched her vow. Together they gave the camera something it can rarely resist, two people choosing the same moment at the same time. Teenagers at home tried to copy the silhouette, not just the steps, but the courtesy. If Bunny Gibson made energy feel wearable, Joyce and Norman made kindness look fashionable. The contest sheets remember them too. In 1961, at the pony contest, they finished second, proof that neatness can sparkle. The prize was deliciously of its era, a hi-fi and 50 albums, the kind of windfall that turns a bedroom into a dance studio. Imagine them carrying the boxes to a car, already humming through which record would become their private metronome. You don't forget a night like that. The camera moves on, the music doesn't. What made Joyce singular wasn't ornament, it was editing. She left air in the phrase, always just enough for her partner to say something back. Her head turns landed on two, not to show off, but to arrive on time. Even the hands, clean, unhurried, told a story about restraint. In a medium that rewards volume, she selected tone. Years later, former classmates and dance floor acquaintances would remember how she lit a frame without owning it, how a room grew calmer when she took hold of the count. Where is she now? We speak softly here. The public record holds bright flashes, appearances, reunions, photographs where the smile still knows its cue. The private record belongs to families, to friends, to partners who kept the ticket stubs and the inside jokes. About Norman, those who loved him have shared memories that ask for reverence more than retelling. What we can say, truthfully, is that a partnership like theirs keeps working after the last broadcast, in the way two people carry groceries in step, in the way a couple learns to turn without stepping on each other's sentences. If Grace has a curriculum, Joyce taught the advanced course, timing as empathy. She showed that a dancer's finest trick might be listening, the kind that lets someone else look inevitable. And if a generation learned anything from her, it's this: good manners are kinetic. They move through a crowd like relief. If you have a program with their names, a photograph from a winter formal, a newspaper clipping with a date penciled in the margin, help us anchor the memories. Bring us the provenance to match the poetry. Joyce Shafer and Norman Kerr once made a nation exhale at the same time. The echo of that breath is still in the room. Some dancers arrive like a drum fill. Carmen Jimenez arrived like a melody that stayed. In a room of sharp corners and fast feet, she carried a gentler line, hips phrasing the beat with a Latin lilt, shoulders relaxed, smile steady, steps that made the floor feel generous. Television loved the contrast. So did America. Carmen didn't just keep time, she kept temperature, warming the frame until even a brisk rock and roll looked conversational. On American Bandstand, 1959 per 1961, you could spot her by the way fabric behaved, patterns flowing instead of shouting, motion that read as hospitality. Partners noticed first. Ed Kelly felt her frame as an invitation, not a constraint. Mike Ballara, spelled Balera in some captions, learned how a quiet lead can bloom when the follow trusts the air between notes. Carmen made that air visible. Teenagers at home copied the silhouette, softer hips, cleaner ankles, the patience to let a step finish before starting the next one. It wasn't slower, it was attentive. Then the camera blinked, as cameras do, and life widened. Carmen walked into the working world with the same clarity she brought to the floor, this time in the hallways of hospitals, clinics, and community offices. Health administration is choreography without a soundtrack. Triage lines, intake forms, families who need someone to speak two kinds of language at once, English and empathy. Carmen spoke both, and often Spanish as well, becoming a bridge in neighborhoods where a missed instruction could become a missed appointment, a missed chance. The girl who once steadied a partner learned to steady a waiting room. Every so often, the past called her back to the stage. In the mid-1980s, she appeared on a national talk show, one of those rare reunions where yesterday walks out under studio lights and the audience remembers what a nation once felt on weekday afternoons. Carmen arrived as herself, not as a relic, poised, funny, careful with the facts, kinder with the memories. You could hear the old tempo in how she answered questions. No rush, a little room for laughter, a clean landing on the beat. Where is she now? The public record tells us she passed in 2015, surrounded by the city that grew her. The private record is kept by those who worked the same long shifts, who watched her turn bureaucracy into kindness, who learned from the way she carried urgency without panic. If a generation learned poise on a living room carpet because of Bandstand, another learned service at a check-in desk because of Carmen. What remains? A lesson with the softness of a hymn. Finish the step you're in. On television, that meant trusting the phrase. In healthcare, it meant trusting a person, letting them complete a sentence, a signature, a sigh. Somewhere a dancer is still learning how to breathe through a turn. Somewhere a nervous patient is still calming down because a receptionist said, "You're okay, we've got time." The screen fades to a hallway. The beat becomes a heartbeat, and Carmen Jimenez once again keeps perfect time. Some names arrive with fanfare. JoAnn Montecarlo's arrives like a hand you recognize in the dark. Scan the surviving photos and you'll see why. A center of gravity that never panics. A face that tells the room, "We've got this." She wasn't the loudest presence on American Bandstand. She was the proof that the floor is safer than it looks when someone sensible is counting out loud. Watch the shoulders, square without stiffness. Watch the feet, tidy decisions at speed. Watch the smile, permission granted. Regulars remember her for stagecraft, but the story widens into sisterhood. In an era when television loved the thunderbolt, Joanne practiced the umbrella, holding space for partners, friends, and the little weather systems that follow live television around. You can see it in the stills. Her frame makes other people readable. That's a rare gift. Audiences at home copied the silhouette without always knowing why it worked. A skirt that swishes but doesn't argue, a heel that lands like punctuation, hair that says finished rather than fussy. Grace can be kind. That was her argument every afternoon. The contest boards and program captions give us the names. Life gives us the rest. Off camera, Joanne learned the choreography that matters most, keeping appointments, returning kindness, surviving the untelevised seasons. Years later, when an obituary fixed the dates and a guest book opened to the public, strangers and old friends left small, astonished sentences. One called her their favorite bandstand dancer, not because she chased the lens, but because she never needed to. The compliment fits. She didn't take the frame, she made the frame calmer for everyone who entered it. What did teenagers learn from JoAnn Montecarlo? That elegance travels. It leaves Studio B and shows up in bus lines, lobbies, church basements, and kitchens with a radio humming in the next room. It teaches daughters how to stand taller without standing over anyone. It teaches sons how to lead without making noise about it. It reminds a town that posture is a public service. Where is she now? The public sentence is simple and solemn. Families own the paragraphs. What we can tell, faithfully, is that a community remembered her with gentleness and specificity, the only true currency of memory. We can say that her afterlife in the culture looks like this. A prom photo that still calibrates a granddaughter's dress, a recipe card in a neat hand, a neighbor who learned to time a turn by watching a woman who had once learned to time a life. If you were there, if you clipped a column, if you kept a program with her name, if you remember which cardigan she wore the day the cameras misbehaved, tell us. Send the detail only you would know. People speak about legacy like it's bronze and marble. JoAnn Montecarlo's feels more like linen, well made, well kept, and better with age. Some dancers take our breath away. She returned it, counted, steady, and ready for the next song. Some smiles are choreography. Frannie Jordano's was cartography, maps of welcome drawn in a single frame. Camera operators loved her because the room steadied when she stepped in. Teenagers loved her because she looked like the feeling they were chasing, joy that didn't need to shout. Watch the footage that survives from 1960 and you'll see it, the way her mouth lifts a half beat before the turn, as if she's already in conversation with the music. You don't teach that. You protect it. On American Bandstand, Frani learned the paradox that every natural performer eventually meets. The camera makes you large and then asks you to be small. She obliged with humility, keeping the angles sweet and the footwork clean. Paired often with Mike Ballara, sometimes spelled Balera in captions, she treated partnership as hospitality. Her frame said, "After you," then made his best choices look inevitable. Audiences copied the silhouette without knowing it. A skirt that reads like laughter, shoes that land as lightly as a promise, hair that can keep a secret. The contests remembered her too, because joy competes well when it's organized. Somewhere in a family album, there's a photo of a young woman beside a red convertible, the air around her full of unspent miles. She won that car, they say, from a dance contest. The detail sounds apocryphal until you stand next to the picture and feel the period correct itself. The chrome, the grin, the way victory lands not as a shout, but as a yes. It's the kind of artifact that turns a paragraph into a scene, and a scene into proof. The camera taught America how to dream on weekday afternoons. Sometimes the dream handed over keys. Print remembered her voice. A 1960s teen magazine carried a piece under her byline, another room where Frani's cadence could live. Imagine the draft on lined paper, the margin notations, the way a dancer translates muscle memory into sentences that breathe. The live show minted a style. The page preserved the temperature. For girls who read it at kitchen tables while nail polish dried, the article was a permission slip. Elegance could be gentle, tenderness could be modern. Where is she now? The public record thins after 1960. Real life rarely leaves press clippings when it's doing its best work. What we can say, honestly, is that Frani's afterlife in the culture looks like persistence. Prom photos calibrated against her silhouette. A granddaughter's laugh that sounds suspiciously like hers. A neighbor who learned to time a twirl by watching the way Frani's wrists negotiated a turn. Polite, precise, never in a hurry. The red convertible may be gone, the magazine's out of print, but the instruction remains. If you danced with her, if you snapped a picture the day the car arrived, if you clipped the article and tucked it into a book, bring us the proof only you would have. Some legends are stone. Frani's is motion. It survives wherever people still turn toward each other on two and find to their delight that the smile arrived first. The needle lifts, the applause dissolves, the lights cool to a practical gray. What stays is smaller and stronger than fame, habits of grace that outlive the broadcast. We came to Bandstand to watch teenagers learn how to move. We leave understanding how they taught a country how to carry itself. 7 women mapped that lesson across a decade and a lifetime. Bunny Gibson showed that energy could be worn like sunlight, a brightness you could put on and keep. Carole Persiani tuned the room, proving that elegance is not decoration, but proportion, the right amount of everything in the right place. Barbara Levick measured her turns until victory sounded like a metronome, not a cymbal crash. Joyce Shafer made kindness visible in the architecture of a partnership. Her timing was empathy with a count. Carmen Jimenez reconciled rhythm and service, translating dance floor poise into the choreography of care. JoAnn Montecarlo steadied the frame, the kind of presence that makes other people readable. And Frannie Jordano reminded us that joy is a technique as much as a mood. Light landing on two, a red convertible in the sunlight, a magazine byline that says the voice can dance too. We ask, where are they now? And discover an answer that disappoints the gossip but satisfies the heart. They are in the public record and in private rooms, in guest books and garages, in closets where a skirt still swishes like applause when it's moved on a hanger. They are in the way a granddaughter checks her posture in the mirror. They are in the hesitation before a couple's first step, and the relief when their feet find the same idea. If you were there, on the studio floor, in the bleachers, at home with your hand on the rabbit ears, add your line to the ledger, scan the program with a date in the margin, photograph the admission card. Tell us which song made the room behave. This project is a dance with memory. We bring the count, you bring the steps that only you know. The music stops, the style remains, and somewhere, as the camera fades, a nation keeps time with a lesson learned long ago. Stand a little taller, share the beat, smile when you land.